Hey, we're live. All right.
No pressure.
So, hey, everybody, we're going to wait a minute and let everybody get in here.
See if anybody watches again.
Yep. I mean, nobody's watching. It's fine. Nobody's literally already watching.
So, see, we're good.
See, you're good. All right. Let me put a comment out. Hey, everybody.
Everybody can just watch us sit here. All right. Then you have fun. Nah, you're fine. I'll deal with it. Are you going to do your little intro thing?
I have buttons, man. Like, look, those buttons are important.
What?
I paid good money for that. Do.
Oh my god, there's people already watching.
No, there's. Don't look at it. Oh, that's fine.
I'm going to look at it the entire time.
You can just close the screen. It's fine. Just turn your screen off. You don't even see it. It's good. How are you? How are you? At an amazing third, 4 different times here, nervous. Why? I don't get it. Drink more. You're good.
No, okay. So the thing is, most people don't. I'm just nervous all the time.
Right. Okay.
Like, so I actually got asked that. So I'm actually a relatively shy person.
Okay.
Like internally, I assume that nobody really needs to hear what I have to say or really
Right.
wants to or anything else like that. But I'm also I'm very socially just kind of, I assume nobody wants to hang out. And so I'll just bamf out of parties because I'll just be standing there doing nothing and just be like, okay, well, time for bed. Shook off. Because unless I'm having conversation, I just and also I have a really hard time approaching people to have conversation.
Right.
So I'm just kind of a little bit of a shy, socially awkward weirdo. But if you put me in public, I damn well better be entertaining. That's one of the things. If the spotlight's on you, then I might as well just be. I'll be weird and slightly nervous the entire time, but fuck it, I'll do it.
So I'm trying to figure out when the live started because the clock wasn't running, and then the clock started running.
Oh, it's going right now.
It is now, but it wasn't for we've been on for more than 45 seconds. That's weird. Meh.
So my clock says 3 minutes almost.
Oh, okay. That's weird. Mine doesn't. That's odd. I don't know. Things are weird. All right, you ready for me to push the button? I'm going to push the other button. Start the official thing.
Yeah.
All right. Silence. Good evening, everybody out there in Facebook land. It is Kalbardr coming to you live from the Bear Navy Osprey on the southern coast of Meridies. And I'm joined once again by my favorite Westie, Helga, Duchess Sir Helga, Duchess Sir Mistress Helga, and all her fancy titles.
Yeah.
I like doing that because she wants to punch me when I say them. But for tonight, we are going to throw those titles out the door. We're just going to be Kalbardr and Helga talking about an awesome book. So this is part 2. For those of you who missed part 1, we're going to wait an hour so you go catch up, and then we'll do this again. I'm just kidding. We're not going to wait. But you can go back and watch part 1 later. It was actually a lot of fun. But for those of you who didn't and are just catching this the first time, the book we're discussing is The Anatomy of Peace. This is a book that Helga recommended to me because of some conflicts and things that I was going through and some trying to figure out how best to deal with my approach to the SCA and some politics things. And our discussion last week led us into a lot of the current political climate of the SCA and of the world in general, frankly. So we tiptoed around it for a bit and then just finally dove into it, and I think it led to some really good conversations. So
I hope so.
People seem to like it, so that was I guess that really was what matters. So if you're watching us live, say hey in the comments. Share it to your friends. Just don't tell Helga you're watching.
Feel free to ask questions as we go along.
Yes, please. Yeah, ask questions. Let us know how you feel. Give us some hell yes or whatever. If you say something profound, I'll throw it up on the screen and we'll talk about it. So, with all of that being said, so this is part 2. So this is a 4-part book, right?
I think I'd have to look.
It's 3 or 4 parts. So we're doing each sort of part in general just to kind of break it up. So we'll kind of go through the chapters and discuss the topics and see what happens. So, So chapter 8 starts us and gives us some backstory. So part 2 starts day 2 of this conference that they're at. And Lou gets a phone call or has a phone call with the union boss from his work. So clearly somebody he's had a conflict with or is having a constant conflict with. And I thought it was interesting that Lou's like, all right, I'm going to power through. I'm going to start seeing him as a person and see if this helps. And you're all like, I'm like, yeah, go Lou. This is going to be best. And it lasts about 30 seconds. And then he says, fuck that. Because the guy John responded negatively. So, of course, Lou blows up and goes back to his old, angry man ways, and it devolves into back to the war again. So then, of course, Lou wants to leave because he hasn't been a fan of this entire conference from the beginning. And, which, I mean, that's a logical step for the character. The thing I really thought was interesting was Carol standing up to him. And that was her first, backbone moment I've seen in this. So what's your thoughts? So what are the thoughts there? Are there any specific thoughts from that interaction that are not covered later?
Actually, it's not really. It's kind of a setup from part one. So part one is basically introducing the tools, introducing the idea of you can either see somebody as a person or you can see them as a thing,
right,
like an object. And so now, we have the whole build up to that through part one of starting to install the idea of what is conflict, first conflict resolution, and how can you get there. And that entire scene is just a setup in the fact that it's not easy and it's not an instantaneous change. Right. And so that's really just, it's introducing the two arcs of it. I didn't go over this the first time, but Lou and Carol are two different arcs. So he gets hard, she gets soft. So right. she bends, and they go over that later on in the chapter too, as she always bends and gives. And so she will just fix the problem and go from there, versus Lou will bull charge through the problem and fight the problem.
Right.
And so I really think that was it was a setup to show that the tools can be used with both people, but it still doesn't make it instantaneously easy.
Right. Yeah, that follows. This is a process, and I think it goes back to you're going to have stumbling blocks, you're going to run into conflict, and you're going to react negatively. But recognizing that and moving forward, I think is important to go back to your better tools or whatnot. So yeah, okay. So then we move into chapter 9, and I'll kind of quote. So they bring up the idea from Descartes, the I think therefore I am. The idea from Descartes, not to get into the philosophy of that too much, but is the primacy of the separate human consciousness, that I am I, and I am important, and I am all that matters to me. But then they bring in the other idea that I can't be I without you, and I can't be I without us, because I am part of us, I am part of we, I am part of the community as a whole, whatever community that is, whether it's in our society, in our global society, in the human race, whatever. And there's two ways to look at that, and it goes back to our person-object thing. There is the I-thou idea of seeing others as people. So it's I and you, I and thou, or I and it. So you're seeing, if you look at the I and it, seeing others as objects, it's I and that. It's I and all of that. So it's always me against the world. But if you look at it as an I and thou, that is much more of a, to use the buzzword, inclusive statement of we are together doing the thing, not me and you, or me and that doing the thing.
Yep.
So I thought that was really interesting, an interesting way to put that. Cause you always hear the I think therefore I am statement, but you never hear the other half of that. Granted, it was postulated sort of hundreds of years later after Descartes. But that really brings that into circumstance and brings in some of my interesting. So I'm Buddhist, and one of the Buddhist tenets is the idea of there is no separation, that we are all the same thing, and that pain to me is pain to you is pain to me, because we are all the same. As far as we're all part of the thing. So I think that really plays into that.
Yeah, I'm actually just going to agree on that one. So one of the things that I like that they highlighted in that is learning. And they're going to reinforce this a couple times in different ways through this section of when you look at I think, therefore I am, it's a very singular object that doesn't allow you to relate to other things, versus the breakdown of it is you think because you have been taught to. And that is actually a huge thing right now that is a very much so like a longer term discussion of you are taught behaviors and how you think. And so when you think singularly, you will mimic the behaviors that you have picked up, and you then don't associate with what's going on about it because I think, therefore I am, which is a singular selfish mindset, versus I think because I have been taught to allows you to actually self-analyze. And that's actually what I take away from that is if you understand that you think the way you do because other people have taught you to, you can now start breaking down those thought processes. And that's actually what I think they were getting after, because like the next section they go into actually involves a lot of separation of cultures, because we start thinking in the like, well, it's me versus them, instead of it's me and I just haven't understood this yet.
Right, and that's interesting. Especially we've heard a lot recently with the racism debates and the Southern heritage, because being in Alabama, the discussion of Confederate flags and all that has been very prevalent in my life recently. So that's interesting because a lot of that discussion is all about, well, that's just that's how they grew up, that's how I grew up, that's how we learned, that's our heritage. But yeah, it is. I think that way because that's what I was taught. Means you can learn different things later. You can grow down that path. But if it's just an I am statement, I am this person, I am male, I am white, like those are unchangeable things. Well, mostly unchangeable things.
Yeah, and so that was my weird existential thing that I took away from that. But I'm a little weird in how I read things and how I hear lyrics, and so that's one of the things that I took away, because building on later chapters in the beginning of it is everything in this book always refers to you have to stop thinking just about you and everything else being everything else being something to overcome or argue with or fight with to go through the thing. And that's what I took away from that little section of if I stop thinking I think therefore I am versus I think because I have been taught this way, now I can deprogram behaviors
right. God, which you can translate that into so many things, from looking at racial biases or even looking at like fighting tactics. I throw that shot because that's my bread and butter. Yeah, but maybe it's not the best shot. Just to break that into something that's wow. Ooh. See, this is why I want to have this conversation. I like having because I knew you'd have something like that. And we're like, so okay. So there's another to move into this chapter. There was another point in the chapter that I really liked. There was we don't choose war; it chooses us. But when our hearts go to war, we've chosen it for ourselves. So I think that was another and it touches on it because it was a setup for the next section. But to look at that, it's a conflict's going to happen, war's going to happen. So looking at Lou and his, he had this conversation and there was a negative response. You get to choose your reaction to that, regardless of your surroundings. You get to internalize that fear, that anger, that whatever. The stimuli will be the same. Your reaction is what can change. So I think that really sets up the next section. So
yeah.
All right. So moving in, so chapter 10, and sort of chapter 10 sets up the rest of this part because it sort of just builds on the choice diagram. But to give the backstory that it gives, so chapter 10, Yusuf, who is one of the two giving the lecture at the conference, talks about his backstory in Jerusalem and his family growing up and all of the war and his mother having moved around because his father gets killed. And he had a really crappy life. And just if you look at it from a just political strife standpoint, and how privileged some of us are to have not dealt with stuff like that. And so he has every right to be mad and every right to be upset at the people who caused him, who caused that damage in his life. If you look at that. So later, so he talks about a man he finds that is that he sees as the enemy, that is part of that enemy grouping, enemy race, whose name is Mordecai. And Mordecai was at this point is a blind beggar on the street. where Yusuf was working at the time as a hawker. He was hawking a ware for one of the sellers in the market. And Mordecai drops his coins in the street. And Yusuf, even though he saw this man as his enemy and saw him as the other and as an object in this case, he for a minute saw a person in a struggle. So, blind person dropping their coins, that's not something they can easily recover from, especially in a busy market. And he went, I should help him. And that's that I think a lot of us had that same reaction. He then made the choice to turn away and started viewing that person as an object and as he deserves it. So it breaks out a choice diagram. And this comes up a lot and gets referenced through the rest of the chapter.
We're going to be referencing this a lot.
Yeah, so the top of the choice diagram, and again, we'll throw the pictures up in the links if Helga doesn't beat me to it.
I told them early this time.
So there is a sense desire. So the sense of desire in this case was help Mordecai by gathering his coins. That's the trigger for the choice. The two choices are now to honor the sense of doing the thing or betraying the sense. So the choice is not to help him or not. I'm kind of, I guess, spoiler alert for a later chapter because they bring that up later. But the choice is not to do the thing. The choice is whether you think you should do the thing. And whether you honor yourself and honor the choice that's there or the sense you have to help him. So in this case, he chose to betray himself. He chose to betray the sense and turn away. So they discuss the view of himself and the view of Mordecai, and then the view of the world and the feelings around that. So to kind of read those, so Yusuf's view of himself was he was better than him. He was a victim. So Yusuf, he's had all these turmoils. He's owed some sort of thing. He's bad, but he's made to be bad, and he needs to be seen as well, that'll come up. That'll be elaborated on later. His view of Mordecai is he has no right to be there. He shouldn't be there because this is his homeland. Mordecai shouldn't be in it anyways. Mordecai has robbed Yusuf of his peace. He's a Zionist threat and a bigot. Whether he is or not, that's his view of him at the time. The world is unfair. The world is unjust. It's burdensome, and the world's against him, against Yusuf in this case. And it makes him feel angry, depressed, and bitter. So I think we've all looked at that choice. Well, we've all made some sort of choice and then justified that choice. So I think looking forward in that choice diagram, because it's hard to talk about the choice diagram without going into the next pieces of it. So they started to break that apart, and Helga, jump in here if there's something that's a point to make here.
I will in a minute. You're actually so one of the things that they're going to go over in a little bit actually is justification. And you're gonna hear us reference this a couple times. Is we will justify our actions with the choice diagram. So the choice diagram they refer to in the book is the box. It's a self-built idea of what we should be seen as. And they go over this a lot with the characters, kind of having them build the box. So they take and they build this box. This box is how we feel we should be seen. So you can, if I'm going to apply it to myself, I need to be seen as somebody that is strong and capable. I need to be seen as somebody that doesn't get victimized. And then reverse all that. What does that mean that I do? It means that I can turn into a bully really fast. It means that I'm going to find threat when there possibly isn't. I'm also a people pleaser. I want to be seen as nice. I want to be seen as somebody that you can approach and everything else like that. So does that mean that I'm going to not address threats? Does it mean that I'm not going to call people out? Because if I call people out, then, I'm starting something. And so they actually break down how you can start building your own box and understanding in this choice and the choice diagram. Because the choice diagram is honor what you should do versus what you make excuses to do, which is a justification.
Right.
And they're going to mention it a lot in this book is we justify our shitty behavior a lot and we will do it in very weird ways. One of the ways they bring it up in the book is if using the coin spill, if somebody was spilled their coins and you're holding a book in your hand, you will justify not helping by becoming very fascinated with that book at that moment in time. It's the distraction excuse or anything else like that. And so one of the things that they start breaking down here is checking your own justifications.
No, that's very true. I think, and so that justification is a big thing. In that we can always find an excuse not to do something, and there's sort of two halves. Like I can see it in two ways, because there are often reasons why you can't do a thing. And let me be clear here. I'm not saying you always have to help all the people all the time. You always have to do always be the good guy, always do the right thing. Like, you don't always have to stop and help the hitchhiker, right? There may be good reasons why you can't do something or shouldn't do something. What you need to do, though, is when you're looking at that, are you making excuses to justify a bad behavior, or are you actually legitimately doing an analysis of a potentially dangerous situation? To look at something like, I brought up the hitchhiker thing. I pick up people on the side of the road all the time, and I've always done it. I've always felt that I try to help people when I can, because I would want someone to help me in the same situation. And it's led to some really interesting conversations, led to some really fun stuff. But people have really gotten like weird about it and like give me crap, and I'm like, it's a nice thing I can do. Now, I wouldn't expect my girls to do that, because from a risk analysis perspective, they're much more likely to be injured by doing that thing than I would be, strictly from a physical perspective, right? So, there's that of I made a choice and they could justify it as a physical problem. I don't have that justification, so I choose to do the thing. They, however, looking at them, want to make that choice. They want to stop, and they're honoring the sense, they're honoring that decision, even though they can't because of a physical reason, because of some potential harm that would come to them. I think that's the difference. Is even though if you can't do the thing or for some reason are unable to, the fact that you want to is the biggest difference in the choice there. So looking at the justifications, trying to think how to. I guess let's go into the boxes. You want to just kind of dive into the boxes, and then
we can totally dive into the boxes.
Back to the boxes
actually, I think, are really good. Like,
because I think the other point I want to make is, I want to find is the what changed. Because I think something brought up in chapter 11 that's sort of in the middle of the box thing is when you make this choice, or before you make the choice, right? So a thing has happened and you're making a choice to, in this case, assist, right? Yes, you can see this guy as your enemy and as whatever, but you had a feeling, you had a sense of doing this thing. What changed between right then and now in that decision being made? Well, nothing. All the bad stuff that's happened, all the bad hurt, all the negative feeling you're putting on that person is in the past. It was already there. So nothing has changed now to make you change that decision. So I think that was a really interesting thing. Is the only thing that's changed is you, and that's what can change is you. The world may not change. You, however, can. Yeah. So.
And that's one of the interesting things of, like, if you understand your box of, and so the thing is, they go over 4 quadrants of the box. The 4 quadrants of the box is the view of yourself, the view of like what is going on, or the person, place, or thing that you're interacting with, your feelings, and the view of the world. Because those 4 things equal your box.
Right.
And if they're negative, they're going to cause a negative reaction. Versus if they are something where you understand them, you can then actually change the reactions. And again, this is, you're going to hear us say it a lot during these chapters. A lot of it goes back to that initial statement that I made. If you understand the why, or that you have been taught to do these, you have been taught this, versus, you are this, you can then address the box. If you just are this, you're never going to address the box.
Right.
And that's something that they bring up with one of the characters, where he's like, well, I'm not afraid of what anybody thinks.
Right.
He's actually very afraid of what everybody thinks. And so he is trying to justify his box constantly, which I need to be seen as this strong male character. If you read this, you're like, You are toxic masculinity and like
defined. Yeah, right.
Right there. And so that's one of the things that by IDing your box and understanding your feelings behind your reaction, how you view the world and what you need out of the world, and what you are perceiving out of another person is huge in dealing with it.
Right. So the first box they mentioned is the better than box. So the better than is you're seeing yourself as better than that person. So why would you help them? Because you're better than them. So the view of yourself would be superior, important, or virtuous, or in this case, right. And that's the one that I think I get hit with a lot is I'm right.
Mm-hmm.
The view of others is that they're inferior, incapable, or wrong, or false. The view of the world is that it's competition. So if somebody has to be right or wrong, it's a competitive situation. The world is trouble, and the world needs me. Feelings being impatient, disdainful, and indifferent. So that's me. All of that right there is just me all over. Just I'm going to write my name on this page because holy crap.
Do you hate me for this book yet?
What?
Do you hate me for this book yet?
No, not at all. I've looked at it and went, damn it, all right. And I'd read it again and go, damn it, yeah, all right. No, it is that is very much a me situation. So I can see that. And what's weird is I don't often feel superior, but I often feel like the smartest person in the room, and I've said that. And sometimes maybe I have been the smartest person in the room, but that doesn't really matter. Is because it doesn't matter if I'm the smartest person in the room if I can't articulate and help people improve in the situation because I'm being a dick about it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that's wow, ouch. Okay, thanks. Moving on now.
Well, amusingly enough, the smartest people in the room don't drive conversation; they invite conversation.
Right.
So like to be the honest smartest person in the room. That's one of those weird things. Sorry, my footstool just got really weird, and I'm trying to move. Damn it! There we go. I got stuck under my desk.
You really are a Muppet. I
am a Muppet. Okay, like I'm a total Muppet. I literally just got stuck under my desk for a moment. But that's one of the things that I think is starting to highlight in this chapter. Of they actually bring up basically every character's fault.
Right.
So one of them is always, one of them is a POC. She's always loaded to deal with bigots. She like everything that she does up to this point in time is literally geared to calling that out. Right. You have the wife that always bends. You have the dude that's toxic in his masculinity. And you have a couple other characters that kind of fall within that range. I think those are the relatable characters of like the people like the housewife that always does the chores and nags the husband that's always nagged. And so at this point in time, you have enough relatable characters that you can kind of fall into one of your own patterns and figure out where you fit in that scale of, how do you construct your box?
I have to point out that apparently you were in conflict with your footstool currently.
Who the hell sent that in?
That would be my wife. Yeah, that would be my wife.
Brilliant. And yes, I was 100% in conflict with my footstool. It lost.
All right. So yeah. So let's see. There was a story that Yusuf told about him and his wife about the better than box. Okay, so yeah, so Yusuf tells a story in the thing about him and his wife going out to dinner for Valentine's Day, and he sat down or they were seated, and he smelled a smell and was dealing. He was like, oh God, there's this guy next to me. He smells really bad. This is the worst thing ever, and makes this big deal out of it. And so he's mad at this guy for how dare he comes out, how dare he does this, and ruins my evening. It ruins our evening. And he, not only is mad at this guy, I think it's interesting, he also gets mad at his wife for not being mad. And like, I've been there, which goes back to the whole getting allies thing. He's trying to get an ally out of his wife, and his wife's like, it's fine. It's not that big a deal. Like,
yep.
So they get moved, and then it goes away. And he's like, oh, it's better. Cool. We're good now. We've how dare he comes out. And then the dinner shows up, and he smells it again and realizes it's the food, not the man. And I'm like, wow, you now are a dick, and you feel like a dick. Good job.
Mm-hmm.
But that thought of be that. So he justified the being better than by by putting this guy in a box of he's not worth being here. I'm he's ruining my night. He did a thing. But the other half of that, looking at the seeing him as a person and not the opposition, would be to help this guy. Like what could he have done differently to help him? And I think they get to that a little bit after some of the boxes too cycles back, and I'm good with it. To see him as a person would have been to approach him to either just ignore it and move on, which is, and maybe that's the best option, but to go even further to help this guy would be to approach him and say, "Hey man, are you okay? It's going to help you. Is there something going on?" And that's a tough conversation to have, but maybe it was the right one. So that's interesting.
So I took a slightly different take away from this.
Okay.
So the take I took away from that section of the book is the same thing I use about somebody, or when I perceive somebody is blowing off a shot.
Ooh, yeah.
So I will always check my gear first,
right?
Because it might be me,
right?
And that's always the first place that it starts. That's where Yusuf actually in this entire series actually goes over, and he kind of hits on this a little bit over time, is he never checks himself first.
Right.
That's his character fault, is he always assumes an outside source for whatever is annoying him or needs to get done or anything else like that.
Right.
But that's so I used my takeaway from this story wasn't that he should have gone and talked to the guy first, is maybe he should have checked why he's uncomfortable.
Right.
And if it was, eventually he found out it's the food. So his entire assumption string, all the annoyance, started off an assumption that somebody else was at fault versus himself. And so that's what I actually walked away from that section with, of if my mirror and my camera was reversed, so I was trying to even out my headphones, and I realized that I was just pulling them the other way because I'm a dork.
But you're not playing with your boobs, Helga. That's the important part.
Yeah. So this is actually the same assumption key that I use when fighting somebody. So if I hit somebody and they tell me no, first I will assume that they're asking me to hit them the next level harder. Cool, great. But if it turns into repeated, so I'm not out there to actually hurt anybody.
Right.
And so I'll pause off at an 8, whatever. If I can hit you with an 8 repeatedly, then there's probably something wrong with my gear. And then once the fight is over, I'm going to check my gear first. The first thing I'm going to do is you'll see me on the sidelines, screwing my sword, be like, did my dumbass come out with a chunk of rattan that was bad? Mm-hmm. Anything else like that. And then after that, I get to go have a conversation with them. But the first thing in that story is he really should have checked himself.
Right.
And he never did that. He never checked himself. It's the same with the lawn mowing story. He never checked himself.
True. That's a good point.
So that was my takeaway from that section, is before you even start wrestling with the box or your justification for being angry or anything else like that, you have to check yourself. Otherwise, you can't get to the next stage.
Right. And that's a good analogy, since most of our audience is likely Scadians, when you slough a shot, when your opponent sloughs a shot, you have to look at it, okay, did I do something wrong? Did I miss that? Did I hit him wrong? Do I get a bad sword? And then you go, okay, none of those things are true from what I can tell. Then it's, okay, is there something wrong on their side? But you checking yourself first is good, because it'd be really painful to go say, hey, did you miss that? Did I do something wrong? Did your helmet broke? And then you realize you're hitting them with a broomstick. That's. Mm-hmm. I think any fighter that has done it, because we've all grabbed the wrong stick, or just didn't know that we cracked a stick on the last fight or something. Yeah.
I gave up a beautiful fight to Crown because I had a bad stick.
Oh,
right out the gate, flat snapped the fuck out of that dude.
Yeah.
Didn't go anywhere. He just kind of looked at me. He's like, that didn't have enough on it. And I was like, okay. And I get off the sidelines and I could literally just flex my stick.
Oh, wow.
I was like, nope, that was not his bad at all.
Yep. I mean, the shot got there, but yeah, I can, okay.
And that's actually one of the things, amusingly enough, that's a way that I check my biases.
Right.
If I'm getting annoyed at something, the first thing I check is, what are my internal biases? Why am I annoyed by this? Why am I... What is bringing up this reaction in me? So instead of just, it's that other person's fault that I'm mad, or I'm put out, or anything else like that, maybe I need to check what's going on with me first, of why am I reacting like this? And is it internal versus external? Because if it's internal, I can handle it. Like, I can totally just be like, cool, great. Like, I'm going to go sit and think for a minute or anything else like that. If it's external, at least I've addressed my internal bullshit first, so I can then go have the conversation. And actually, amusingly enough, I'm going to bring up, again, somebody blowing off shots. I had a dear friend of mine have a really shitty list where he's lost a bunch of weight, and where his armor crossed was just a 4.5-inch long by 12-inch dead zone. And I throw a relatively meaty rap. Like, I got no problem with it. I must have hit him 6 times in our set. Like, in a tournament where I was doing pretty well and I was having that ego day, and I realized the 3rd shot I got angry and I was like, nope, need to assume it's my shit first. And, we had a great fight after that, even though it went, and I wouldn't let him take the fight back from the list, by the way, because he actually offered. So, like, we got done, walked off the field, I checked my gear, everything else like that. I was cool, it's not me. I walked over with my stick in my hand, and I said, hey, dude, I think we got a problem. And he's like, nobody else has talked to me about it. I'm like, oh, I can tell you there's chatter on the sidelines. Right. I was the first one that actually addressed myself before I addressed him, though. And so, because I addressed myself, he could actually hear what I had to say. Right. Whereas, like, so there's these things going on. I don't want you to change the fight. Like, I'm perfectly fine with it. What I want you to do is change the rest of your fights for the day. Right. Like, just go out, and if anybody, like, if you feel anything there, you just have to understand you got a dead spot. And I hit him on the sideline. He was totally like, cool, I'm game. Like, let's check this out. And I beat the shit out of his ribs on the sidelines to make sure we got his gauging right. And then he went back out and had a beautiful day. Right. But because I checked my anger first before I went and talked to him, it actually allowed the conversation. And that's the same thing that would have had to happen with the story in the book, is he wouldn't have been able to have a constructive conversation with the dude until he actually checked his own anger. Right.
Yeah, that follows. So I'm actually, to go to that exact same story, I have a very similar story from when I played previously and even now. So when I played previously, I was 450 some odd pounds, and I apparently had a nerve pinch on my left side of my body that I did not know about because of my weight. So I was a rhino hide for years, didn't know it, I was also young and pissed off, so nobody could talk to me. Granted, I can admit that now. So when I came back and started fighting again, I had to be very careful about when I took shots and things. So people would hit me and I wouldn't feel it because I wouldn't know, through the armor and through my nerve pinch. And so I started telling people, okay, look, if you hit me with anything, I'm going to call it if I know it's there. But if you're hitting me with something that I don't know, like, let me know, because it's likely going to be me. And I've had to, I think, even kind of calibrate to, if anything touches me, I'm calling it, because it's hard for me to tell. So that's interesting, yeah, because I've been on both sides of that fight. Of I've thrown shots people didn't call, and then it was my stick. I've thrown shots people didn't call, and it was their helmet, or that I've been hit with shots that I didn't call because I didn't know they existed. Mm-hmm. It gets even worse in like war situations too, when you've got 30 spears flying at your face, and and I don't feel it. So I feel that. We can talk about fighting for all night. Pretty much. You and I haven't talked about it yet. We haven't talked about fighting very much yet. That's later. This is a lack of fighting conversation. Let's talk about lack of fighting. All right. So the next box. The next box is the I Deserve box. So this is the. I think Elizabeth is one of the. She's the sort of big lady in the room. She's the powerful female businesswoman person. So the view of herself is that she is meritorious. She's been mistreated. She's a victim. She's unappreciated. Her view of others is that they're mistaken, they're mistreating her, and they're ungrateful for her. Her view of the world is that it's unfair, that it's unjust, and that it owes her something. And she's entitled, she's deprived, and she's resentful. Mm-hmm. So what's the story? Because it gives a story for that one too. Trying to find the justification story. Each of these have like a small justification stories with it.
Yeah, she's the one with the sister, right?
Yeah, that's what it is. Yeah. Go
ahead. So she has her justification box comes around bad family dynamic, and her being successful versus her sister being successful, and she's actually there with her sister's kid. Right. Versus her sister showing up, and she realizes that when she starts defining her box, that this is kind of like the theme through her life of she applies and then obsesses over the fact that other people aren't appreciating her for what she does.
Right.
And this is the thing where then she will focus on that and then basically pick fights with them until they're like, yes, 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 I appreciate you for the thing that you do, which is not satisfying at all. Where she can agree that her sister should be more responsible, she can't obsess about it and then make it a problem.
Right. Well, and it doesn't matter how much she thinks that. Her sister has to think that. So all she can do is manage her reaction to it and manage her feelings about it, because obviously she's not going to be able to change her sister in this case. But seeing that she deserves better or whatever is causing her to have negative feelings, those feelings of entitlement or deprivation or being resentful is then causing her to have conflict. But she's justifying it because she thinks she deserves to be treated that way or deserves to have that recognition or whatever, or doesn't, in this case, probably doesn't deserve to be there, because if her sister was only more responsible, she wouldn't have to be doing this thing with her nephew or whatever. Okay, and that's a fairly easy one. Like, I think, so I had a thought when you were just talking about that just now of the I deserve thing, and going back to the conversation you and I were having earlier about titles and all of that, and I think a lot of the times we try to specifically avoid the I deserve thing in the SCA when we look at titles or peerages or awards or whatever, because we try to be like over humble about it, to avoid that very box, so people don't see us as that, or don't see us as getting that direction. And that's an interesting sort of thought. I haven't fully formed that thought, but like that thought's there of.
Let me throw a wrench in that.
Oh, come on. Yeah, no, please.
Her character represents the angry unbelt.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Because the I deserve box falls into, I've done all this thing, why aren't you grateful? Why am I not recognized? Everything else like that. Which, by the way, we're going to go off on a rabbit hole real quick. I actually think that stage is very, very crucial in the development of our peers. And not that I wish it on everybody, but I think that the angry stage is actually us getting rid of a lot of those assumptions, and we learn how to process through them, versus if we didn't actually experience it, we wouldn't know how to process it.
All right, so you're telling me I need to get really, really angry and then I get to come up here? Is that what I just heard?
No, you have to get really, really angry and then you get over it and then you become a peer.
Got it. Okay. All right. Step one. Okay.
Well, and so here's the weird thing is like, I think that anger shows up in a different way for everybody. Right. And typically it's that anger is actually the breaking down of how you perceive yourself and how you think the world perceives you. It's the first like huge break most people have of a lot of the times on your path, and I'm actually really assuming that on her path also, she was told, well, you're doing good at this, you're doing good at this, but then she got pushback, or there was something else there, so she's getting the crosstalk. And I think the crosstalk equals we want to listen that we're doing good, and we want to internalize that, but then we get the like, oh, but you still need to do better. And so we're just like, these do not line up. These things do this, they do not do this. Now I'm angry. And so I think that that's a lot of her representative character. She's in that transitionary period of understanding she is good enough without having to prove it.
Right. So in her case, and so looking at the angry unbelt situation, it's because she is a female businesswoman, which is a minority, a person that has had struggle in her career, I'm sure, and has now gotten there, has now achieved some level of recognition in that. It feels like she deserves it because she worked so hard to do it. So yeah, I can see that. That's an interesting call out for that.
I told you my brain works really weird.
No, that's and again, it's also why I like having your opinion on this, because you have seen, you're now on the other half of this journey or whatever. So you've sort of seen both pieces of it, and that's interesting. Oh, hi, Agnes. Welcome.
I see the angry faces on there, and I'm like, oh God.
I know. I won't call that out, but I'm gonna message that person and find out why they were angry.
I'm just like, oh God.
It's just one. I'm
actually super curious about the reaction. Like.
Right. Yeah. No. That'll be. I don't want to call them out publicly, but if you're the person who angry reacted to this and you're still watching, please let us know why. I'm really curious.
Yeah,
feel free to message me privately on the page or post in the comments, because I'm curious now. Cool. Okay, so The next box is the need to be seen as box. So I think this is the one you brought up earlier. That's your box. So the need to be seen as box needs to be thought of. Needs to be well thought of, but also as a fake. So you're having to fake it to be well thought of. I'm assuming we're getting mad just joining in. No, Agnes, we're not getting mad. We're trying to not get mad. That's the point, actually.
Okay, because good. I'm just like, oh man.
No, that's not her. I'm not sure. So Agnes is not the person who angry reacted, but she was just assuming we were getting mad because we were talking about being mad. So.
Oh yeah, dude. I was just like, oh.
That's funny. All right, so yeah, view of myself needs to be well thought of and fake. The view of others is that they're judgmental, that they're threatening, or that they're your audience, which I think is interesting. How you talked about when you're in the spotlight, you act up and you act out, and you're putting on a show. The view of the world is that it's dangerous, that it's watching, or it's judging you. And the feelings are anxiety, afraid, needy, stressed, or overwhelmed. So yeah, you've said all of those in this stream already about you. So that's really interesting. Yeah. But I mean, I can relate to some of that as well. And I think anybody who's trying to achieve anything in the SC or in society wants to be thought of as good, as positive, as happy or whatever. And clearly it'd be better to just be that. It would be better just to be happy and good and positive. But I think sometimes we try too hard at that, maybe.
Yeah. And also, one of the things is this is like what I consider the people pleaser box.
Right.
I'm actually trying to totally flip to it real quick.
So every pelican ever, is what you're saying?
No, actually, well, kind of.
Yeah.
Mostly. So this is one of those ones of a people pleaser doesn't mean you don't want to be seen as bad. And I know where my root cause comes from of being told I'm too much.
Right.
A lot. But that's I'm a lot of personality in one small angry package, okay? But I think that we end up having that people pleaser box tends to come out of not wanting to be seen as too much or too little. Those are the fears that I associate with that box. And speaking to that box, it's that's one of those things where it's okay, cool. I've experienced this box, so I can go into this one a little bit more in depth. At least for me, it comes out of too much or not enough. Right. I now need to try to be something else to get to that point where that person is happy and doesn't want to just eat me. Eat is one of my favorite terms. And so it's a very interesting box to struggle with because it means that you're actually lying about yourself a lot.
Right. There was a question that came up in the circle group earlier that I saw. The question was something about as a peer, did you do something in your path to peerage that you stopped doing after you became a peer? Basically,
I thought that was a fantastic question, by the way.
Yeah, because wow, okay, because what did you change to become a peer is the question, and that's a question that I think is important to look at. But if you made a change to become a peer, there was a positive change that you've kept. Awesome, that was a positive change in your life. But if you made a change to become a peer and then stopped doing that when you became a peer, then you were doing it. It was fake. It was all it was for show to get the shiny thing. So yeah, that was an interesting. I haven't dug into all of the. I've seen some responses to it, but that was I'm curious. I'd be curious to see what some people's responses were. That people I knew, or if anybody I knew had done something like that.
I think that falls into the checkbox. Checking the box off.
Right.
Without internalizing the change.
Right.
And so there has been, anybody can find examples of it. What I'm actually really hoping is that for the most part, many people on that place have been told, hey, this is a hoop you need to jump through. Right. And it's more like feedback on, this possibly needs to change. This thing that is going on needs to change, and how can we help you internalize it?
Right.
And I think that's what I'm hoping it more is, because if somebody's just I need to change a personality quirk, you're falling right into the need to be seen box.
Right.
Like, it's not going to stick.
Like, I can see it from a, like, again, not a peer, not a belt, like, but like I can see some of the logic of, well, to be a Laurel, you're doing amazing research, you're doing amazing work over here, but to actually sort of get over the hump, you need to be going to more ANS fairs and doing more judging, or you need to be doing more, entering more fairs or whatever. That after you become a peer, you can step back from that some and focus on some other aspect, maybe. But like the effort showed is the important part, right? So it wasn't necessarily so that is a hoop that you may have jumped through to become a Laurel, or to become a knight. You need to fight in tournaments more as a squire to then become a knight because you need to be more recognized. So it's not really a pattern change, but it is a hoop to jump through. But yeah, if it's a hey, stop, be less of a dick for some period of time, or stop being so political for some period of time, and then you become a knight, and then you go right back to being political again. Okay, well, yeah, you faked being not political for some period of time to become a knight. Good job.
I have a weird thing on that one.
Come on.
I don't think we should be telling people to not be political.
Right? No, I agree with that. I was using sort of as an example, but yeah, I agree.
I'm just kind of like that's my weird one of
right.
Like true politics. How we spend our money, where the money is invested, can totally be left at the gate.
Right.
What politics is these days? Not so much.
Nope. Yeah.
That's a whole rabbit hole we go down.
Human rights is not politics. That's the short version of that. End of story. I don't care. Human rights is not politics all day long. And if you think that, and you're not comfortable in the SCA because of that, bye. Stance, moment, don't care. Okay.
Yeah, you're like, so bye.
Yeah, don't care. And okay. So I've had that conversation a couple of times now, and it bothers me that people that's what they're seeing. Oh, I don't want politics in my SCA. And this has nothing to do with the book, and sorry for those of you watching who want the book, but like I need to have this rant for a second, apparently. That is a thing we don't need to be doing. And like, yes, let's not talk about politics. Let's not talk about where we're spending our tax dollars. But like, if my friends are getting shot in the streets because they're protesting a problem, that's no longer politics. That's fucking assault. So we can talk about that because it's a human rights situation. Okay. Thank you. I apparently needed that. Yeah. Seconded. Okay.
Oh, back to the book.
Yeah. Sorry, I didn't know I needed that rant for a second, but apparently I did. Okay. So yeah. So I agree. I think that is definitely a example of that. So the last box that it mentions is Carol's box, and then we'll kind of cycle back to the choice diagram again. The worst than box. So view of myself is not as good, it's broken or deficient or fated. So it's my fate to be this thing. View of others is that they're advantaged, they're privileged, they're blessed. View of the world is that it's hard or difficult, it's against me, it's ignoring me. Mm-hmm. Making feelings of helpless, jealous, or bitterness or depression. So I think this can apply for anybody who's a minority, so whether it's female or person of color or whatever. This can apply to anybody who is now the majority that's feeling oppressed because of this, because they're no longer in the spotlight for a second. And is definitely an interesting. I think is much more applicable to our current situation of the people who are those minorities that are rallying against it, that can go too far maybe in that always trying to find racism, always trying to find the negative in a situation. Yes, let's fight negative where we find negative. Let's get rid of the problems, but don't use that as your looking for that war. Oh, I just got soapboxed in the comments. Yeah, I know. Thank you. I got soapboxed.
And this is actually, I'm going to go like a totally different direction with that one. Because here's one of my weird ones is, so right now, when it comes to POC voices, I don't ever want to stick them in any of these boxes.
Right.
I don't care how angry somebody is, because that anger really, really needs to be heard. But this box actually, I think, really applies to a lot of people that are waking up right now, or becoming aware of institutionalized racism and other things of their own privilege class, and so all of a sudden they're going from the better than box to the worse than box in like overnight. And so that is the catch that I will tell people, that as they're learning to address a problem, we have to watch for there's an authentic center where we can hear what's going on, we can address what's going on, we can own our we can own our part in it, and everything else like that. And that's one of the things that's going to be leading up to all of this. This is just my take on these things. Is many of us went from a better than box of like, this doesn't exist, we don't owe people this, blah blah blah, to a worse than box where we're like, well, fuck.
I am a racist asshole. How about that? Yeah.
Yeah. And that's one of the things is you gotta balance. So you gotta understand when you're going from one box to another box, because amusingly enough, justification goes across all planes. So you can go from justification through a hard means, which is the better than box. I'm better than this. I am owed this. I am blah blah blah. To the worse than box overnight. Of I'm not complete. I'm broken. I've done all this. Blah blah blah. And so you're punishing yourself. So you went from owed to punishing. And so that's one of those things you just kind of have to watch out for, is as your learning curve happens, you will bounce from one box to another, because it is much easier to justify your behaviors than address your behaviors.
Right. Yeah, no, and that, yeah. And that's, I mentioned that in that my little diatribe there, that I think I'm seeing a lot of the majority class, the non-oppressed in this, starting to see themselves as this, because they're now feeling the oppression, for lack of a better term, coming back on them, whether it's because they're being called racist, because they're being called bigots, because they're being painted with this big brush that we as the majority class, whichever class that is, have been painting others with for so many years. Mm-hmm. And we're just now catching the first whiff of that, and it's startling. Realistically, it's like I've seen it. I think we've all, started seeing ourselves as the thing we have done, that we're the casual racism, the casual sexism, the, humor's humor, yes, but if you got to be a racist asshole to be humorous, you're not funny. Now, had I said that to myself 10 years ago, I'd have laughed at myself, because it was just funny then. But once you start seeing the pain and the negative and the hurt that's causing, even if it's a small thing, even if it's a friend of yours that's, that's just, I had a friend in high school who we didn't recognize he was a black guy. And we joked about that, because he was the one black guy in our band. Guess what his name was? He was Token. That's what we called him. And that, looking back, I'm like, damn, that's okay. Ouch. That hurts. But it was just normal then. It was just what we did.
Yeah.
And I think being able to do that now is important to get out of that box, that we can, to stop justifying the behavior of, well, it was then, it's, oh yeah, well, it's just what we do. It's just, oh, that's my black friend or whatever. No, it's not. It's not okay.
Mm-hmm.
And, yeah, that's that. Yeah.
This is going to be the one side piece to go down the rabbit hole with. It's very interesting when you start recognizing other people putting themselves in boxes.
Right.
You cannot force them out of their own box.
Right.
And that's one of the things the Anatomy of Peace kind of hammers home over and over and over again in this book, is you can't force somebody out of a justification, and you can't force them out of their fear, or you can't force them out of anything. It's all, change is super voluntary. Right. And what you can do is you can offer change, and you can say, hey, I see you're in this box. Can I help you out of the box? But unless they legitimately make the steps or make the change or make the motion, you can't get out. They're never going to change the behavior. It's actually the hoop jumping thing.
Right.
Of you can call somebody on a behavior and say, hey, you need to change a behavior. The better way, or, if you have the ability to, that's actually part of the problem, is there's times where you are not in the place to do it because they're the ones that are offending you.
Right.
But like if you're an outsider, that's actually one of the ways that you can help a situation, being like, hey, I'm going to call you on behaviors. I'm going to call you on this. I'm going to offer a way to not do this. Like, let's have that discussion. And that's one of the things that I think this story starts highlighting in like addressing the boxes is you cannot force anybody out of their box. If they are sold on their box, they are stuck in the I-it stage of everybody is an obstacle. And until you can actually figure out how to get them to start making you look human or give them a way to see you as human, they're never going to do it.
Right. So that's it. So yeah, that's interesting. I'm always finding people. Every time as we talk about this and as I read, like I'm seeing people from my life and things I've dealt with and sort of conflicts I've noticed. So we've had the people that have been rallying around the other side, right? And there's a lot of them that are sort of supporting that, but also going, well, I'm not racist, I'm not that guy, but like maybe he's been, it's fine, right? And they've chosen their box. They've found their little spot of here's the box I'm comfortable in. Here's the behaviors I'm justifying. Well, I'm not racist myself, so they're racist. It's okay. That's fine. And that's that brings some interesting thoughts. I like that. Or rather, I don't like that, but I like that. So when you're looking at that, when you're looking at the interaction with somebody, and you encounter somebody who is in a box, and if this is covered in part 3, we'll address it next week. What do you do? Like, what's the step? How do you convince them, or how do you show them out of their box?
So part of it is, this is going to be a really weird thing. This is actually not really covered in the book. This is just my own personal experience. Is one, my goal is first, not defend, but basically, or actually sometimes it's defend,
right.
But allying with a party that is calling the red flag. So if there's somebody that is like tolerating what's going on or anything else like that, first I'm going to make sure they're okay. Like, that's one of the big things in this is like, cool, we have ID'd a problem or anything else like that. If there's anybody involved, if it's just somebody joking with me, it's a different, or somebody talking with me, it's a different thing. If there's another party involved, making sure that party is actually okay before I deal with what's going on is actually key. Because you can charge in there like a hero all you want. You may actually cause more problems for that person. And so making sure that I'm addressing them and being like, I see you. You are a person in my universe and you have value, and like I'm here to help if you want me to go. And then actually directly addressing the person of like, hey, not fucking cool. And then starting a conversation about it, because likely when you call somebody on a behavior, and you see it in the book a couple times where like people start calling each other on behaviors, and the first thing they do is go to fight because it's the I-it thing. And so you actually have to give them enough time to be like, nope, I'm a person, and I'm a person standing in front of you, and now we're going to have a conversation. Because until they can see you as a person, they're not going to be able to engage you. And so it's, in using this book, or using the word kind of loosely, is make sure the victim of the incident feels seen again and feels like a person and is addressed as a person, especially in front of the person, the other individual that is causing the problem. Like, right. Cool, great. I'm making sure that this person right here that you have turned into an object is actually a person. Like, and you can see me interact with this person as a person here. Now I'm going to go address you. And that's one of the ways that I found is much easier to deal with people that are being slightly shitty. I take away their ability to see that person as an it or an object or something to overcome or something to oppress or anything else like that. Is I am now going to show you that this person is a person and has value and has meaning in this conversation. And now I'm going to address you, and then we can confront some of the issues. And for them being stuck in their box is a lot of the times it's actually kind of gently calling people on it of like, most anger comes from fear.
Right.
And so you can address that with people of like, hey, you're being really aggressive right now, or you're treating this person terribly. What's going on? Like, why? And, they actually do this in the book, in some of the conversational stuff is he never like directly calls somebody an asshole. He's like, so why are you acting like this?
Right.
Like,
Yeah,
why
are you having that reaction? Right.
Mhm. Because if you make them feel like they're seen, again, they're seeing you as an obstacle. So now you are deprogramming that obstacle. You're like, nope, I'm a person, and I see you as a person, so you can be a person with me, or you can not be a person, but I'm going to keep showing you that you're a person. You, like, I'm having this conversation and everything else like that. Also, I want to be clear, there is a line. There is 100% a line that if somebody is being super shitty and super, like, racist or sexist or dangerous at all, I don't give a fuck. At that point in time, they're now a threat. This is when a person is in that gray area of being slightly bigoted or slightly racist or like being a little sexist or something like that, and you can address the problem. If there's a safety issue involved, if there's ever a safety issue involved, I'm sorry, that person is turning into an it for a moment, so I can make sure that the victim is safe. End of story. And then I can go back. But there's always a line, but that's one of the things that I always want to make clear is for as much as the Anatomy of Peace is like one of my Bibles, basically, is there is always a line. Understand where that line is. Because when you're not in that line, then you can address it, you can get that conversation going, and you can address the behaviors. But always make sure that you and that person are safe if something is going on.
Okay, but to counterpoint that from the Saladin perspective, and I think this will end on this because we're just over an hour now. The person, even the most racisted, bigoted, whatever person, is still a person, and when you're dealing with them, you still need to treat them as a person. You don't have to be nice, you don't have to be polite about it, but they're still not an it. They're still a person, and you still need to deal with them as a person. Yes, remove them. Make sure it's safe. If that's a whatever physical thing, sure. I'm not saying don't go to physical war about that, but don't burn their house down. Don't murder their children. To bring back the Saladin thing, is that they are still people, and there are still people that love them, and that and I think, and that's an interesting note of the people that I'm dealing with that are friends with the people who have been banished because they're terrible people potentially. Those people are still people, and the persons who have been banished are still people. And we need to look at that and go, okay, you like this guy. Clearly, you saw something in him that the rest of us aren't seeing. What are you seeing? What's the thing that you're looking at? What do you see in this? And it's going to let them feel heard, and then try to figure out where the line is in that case.
I totally have something for you on that one.
Oh, go. Okay.
Those people in the gray area, because I've run into this a little bit before, is the people that are in the gray area typically are seeing their friends as people, and the ones that are on the outside as it.
Ooh, okay, yep.
So they can relate.
That's what you're doing the opposite.
Yeah. So they can relate to the person, but they can't relate to the complaint.
Right.
So this is actually a classic broken stair thing of people, especially with guarding behaviors or trust issues. Once they trust somebody, they blindly trust. They are always a person no matter what they do. But when an outside source comes and tells them the person that they're blindly trusting has some dangerous behaviors, as soon as they say that, they become an it. They become an obstacle. They become something that is going to take away something that they find safety in.
Right.
And so one of the things that ends up happening with a lot of the gray area, like a lot of people in that gray area, is figuring out how you can get them to engage everybody as people. Because a lot of the times, then you can reverse that. You can reverse and start having that conversation of, okay, cool. Like, can you relate to what this person had happened to them from the person you're now protecting? And so that's part of the conversation that has to go on of, are the people in the gray area or siding with things, now allies? You make allies when you get them to think like everybody else is it. So, or object or anything else like that. And so that's how we create allies. We take them all and we turn them all into objects, so it doesn't matter, they'll go to war. Right.
Because then it's just a shield wall you got to run through. It's not they're not people behind their shields. Yeah.
Exactly. And there's actually a really cool documentary on a gentleman, African American gentleman that went and started befriending KKK members.
Oh yeah. Yep.
And he had this down pat of he went from an object to a person and managed to convert people out of there faster than almost anybody else has because he didn't go to war. And I'm also not saying go do that. That's really super dangerous. Please, God, don't do that. It's fascinating to watch, though, if you want. There's a documentary. I've got to go find the name of the documentary. But he was masterful at his ability to go from somebody looking at him as an object or a thing to overcome or lesser to a person. And he did it really fast. Like his techniques are super, super on point. Very practiced also. Please don't blindly risk yourself with dangerous people ever. I am not promoting that.
I think you hitchhikers all the time. I get it. It's a dangerous thing. Don't do it.
Yeah, it's dangerous. Please don't do that.
Yeah.
But that's one of the things that with the gray area, or when we're dealing with broken stairs, or we're dealing with protective groups, we have to remember that those people have been moved to the allyship, like allies to a problem, to a person now facing a problem, versus accepting everybody as people and maybe we need to address something, because if you can address them as a person, if everybody's a person in your mind, it doesn't matter. Like again, Saladin, I need to have the city, but I'm still going to treat everybody as a person.
Right.
And so that's one of the things we have to remember, especially right now, where we don't have a lot of human contact and we're not seeing each other face to face on a regular basis, is that before we go to war, are we going to war against a person or a thing?
Right. And on that note, I think that right there is the mic drop moment. Cool. So thank you again, Helga, for doing this. I think that's been a fun hour of my life.
Hopefully I didn't screw it up too much.
Huh? What?
I said hopefully I didn't screw it up too much. We've got two angry reactions now.
There's only one. All right, so those of you watching, a couple of advertisement things. First of all, those of you who don't know, you should all watch Between Two Peers on Friday nights with Sir Danger Muppet and Mr. Sassy Seamstress. It is the highlight of my week. It is fun to watch. Go follow their page on Facebook. Ask them ridiculous questions. They will likely answer all your ridiculous questions. It is a ton of fun. Who's your guest this week?
Our guest this week is Sir Valora from Aidenvelt, who is a delight. So
last week, you mentioned last week that you guys were getting into the ridiculous guests. Like you had some serious stuff, and now you're just sliding downhill into the ridiculous. So
yeah, the next couple months is super fun and ridiculous.
Nice. I'm looking forward to that. So for me, I've got a couple things coming up. Those of you interested in board games, which is my primary focus in the SCA, I know none of you have seen a lot of that from me because we've been doing this now. But tomorrow evening, I'm doing How to Play Senate with one of the ladies, Lady Second from Pensacola area. She's an Egyptian persona, so I thought that would be interesting to bring her home to play a Egyptian board game. So that'll be a rum class for University of Meridier, so you come get credit and learn stuff about board games and watch me be ridiculous on camera for a little bit. And then Thursday, I'm also doing Intro to Board Games. That is my capstone project for my magister's degree from my rum degree. So that's my nerd for the week.
Nice.
So if you're bored and want to come watch me play board games, talk about board games, that's where I'll be for the next 2 nights. Other than that, we've got some stuff coming up. So we're going to do this again. Probably part 3 will be let's shoot for next Tuesday, I guess. That seems to be our night to do these, depending on how it gets available. And we hope you all have enjoyed this. If you have any questions or comments, please just throw them in the chat. If you're watching this later, you missed out on a fun hour.
And always, you can find this on Amazon. It's I think it's $11.
Yep. They have Kindle versions. They have PDFs and hard copies. It's an amazing book. You should read it.
Yeah.
It's cool. So thank you all for coming. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you, Helga. You're amazing. So this has been Kalbardr and Helga in Kalbardr's Corner. Thanks, guys.